I'm actually very delighted to introduce you, Charles. I've read your books, and so it's really wonderful to have you here. Charles is a very insightful teacher, speaker, writer, focusing on themes of civilization, consciousness, money, and human cultural evolution. He's the author of 5 books, including Climate, A New Story, Sacred Economics, and The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. So Charles, thank you so much for joining us.
Gosh, I just have to say, I'm really, really moved by the just the amount of love and kindness that is permeating already this event. And in the statements that have been made, especially, I mean, all the stuff about inclusivity and stuff. It doesn't sound like a cliche. Especially, what really touched me is the principle of taking a generous interpretation of people with whom we may be in conflict or with whom we may be in disagreement. And it occurred to me that this might play out even in the kind of like nonviolent direct action that you might be doing. One phrase that stuck out at me that seemed a little bit, it didn't quite feel in the same frequency, was about forcing the government to change its policies. Like this idea of forcing, how does that square with maybe an understanding that even people in positions of power, on some level, maybe their heart isn't in this either, isn't in the maintenance of the world destroying machine? And might there be other strategies and other paradigms and other ways of looking at action that are not about forcing, but might also be, or not only about forcing, but might also be about invitation? And that leads me to think about how I became an environmentalist. I wasn't forced to become an environmentalist, and I don't think any of you were either. And in fact, it wasn't also because I was afraid that we were all going to die, or I was afraid of the economic losses of that would be caused by climate change. Really, what it was, the first experience I remember was as a child, hand in hand with my father, looking at a big flock of birds in the sky. And I said, "Dad, that's a big flock of birds." And he said, "Well, let me tell you about the passenger pigeon, whose flocks would darken the sky. From horizon to horizon, the flocks were so big, day after day, they would pass. And now they're all gone." And it took me a while to really understand what extinct meant. And I cried in my bed that night and many nights thereafter, especially as I realized that this was not just an historical event, but that extinction was ongoing. And I think, like, why does that hurt? It's not my self-interested, rational, calculating mind that says, "Woo, if this continues, some bad thing is going to happen to me." It hurts because in some deep sense, these beings that are going extinct, that are being harmed, are me. And that anytime a place that I love is bulldozed, or a pond that was full of life is dead, or when I read about the fish being exterminated in the oceans and whales at maybe 5% their former levels, and soil blowing away in the wind, and I see the photographs of the Albertan tar sands, the devastated landscapes, and the strip mines. I mean, even if we're talking about, solar panels and stuff, I mean, the ecological devastation that's happening in the name of green energy is monumental also. And I see all these things, and it hurts because we are in a time of civilization where we are recovering the indigenous understanding of our non-separation from the rest of the world. And it goes beyond dependency on the rest of nature. It's not just interconnection and interdependency, it's interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh might put it. interexistence. It is happening to us. And therefore, one name for the expansion of self to include another is love. And that really what this movement is falling in love with Earth. And when someone you love is experiencing pain and harm, then you cannot live life oblivious to that. For your life to make sense, it has to take into account the suffering of that which you love. And this is what, in my mind, underlies the slogan of this particular gathering, the part about time to act. It's this urgency that comes not even so much from hurry, but the urgency that comes from a desperation to align our life force with that which we love. So I want to just name that, because I think that whether it's in terms of like practical policies, environmental policies, or in terms of our communication and our rhetoric, it's important to be grounded in the knowledge that Earth is alive. On the policy level, that means that it's not just about cutting carbon. We could cut carbon dioxide to zero overnight, but if we continue to degrade and destroy the living organs of a living tissues and organs and cells of Gaia, the forests, the soil, the whales, the elephants, the sea turtles, even the beings that seem not to contribute to carbon in any obvious way, the insects. And of course, you could make a case that they do, but whether or not they do, if we continue to destroy these organs, the rainforests that pump moisture across continents, the soil that soaks in the rain and prevents droughts and floods, the coral reefs, the seagrass meadows, the mangroves that buffer hurricanes, and that keep the global physiology running. If we continue to destroy these organs, then Earth will die of organ failure, regardless of carbon. And so that's leads to the priorities of protecting whatever organs are still healthy and restoring and regenerating the ones that are damaged. And the other thing, just in terms of communication, that I know I don't want to take much more time. I think I'm almost out of time, but just in terms of communication, that we're stepping into a new and ancient story about what a human being is and why we are here. And when we recognize that, in fact, we are here, not as the old story says, to dominate and conquer and maximize our reproductive self-interest or our financial self-interest. No, that we are actually here to serve life and beauty on Earth. And that includes everyone. I loved hearing that in the introduction. Everyone is coming along for this ride. And the understanding that the social climate, the psychic climate, the economic climate, the climate of human relationship is inextricably linked to the health of the global climate, that we cannot have a world of incendiary rhetoric and boiling resentment and seething hatred and not have a climate that is boiling and seething, or at least deranged, because that's what happens when the organs are destroyed. Then homeostasis cannot be maintained. So to speak to this new and ancient understanding of what a human being is and what we are for, and to see even people who we might judge in positions of power, in government, in corporations, the ones that we would like to cast into the category of evil, to see them maybe as on some level, they are here for the same reason we are. And how do we appeal to that? How do we awaken that love? How do we invite others into the perception of a living planet in which every place, every being is important and sacred? We know this to be true. And yeah, and I'll just end by saying, with a thank you for standing in that knowledge together, because alone it seems kind of crazy to go against what the culture tells us what a human being is for and what the Earth is. And here we are in these gatherings, so important to remind each other that what we are seeing and what we are feeling is the truth. So thank you so much for the event, and I'll turn it back over to our gracious hosts.